The aftermath of World War II was what shaped Cold War Germany into what it was. Germany was in a state of disarray and destruction after the Nazi Party's collapse. A quarter of its housing had been obliterated by Allied bombing. The economy was in shambles, and inflation was rampant throughout the country. There were shortages of everything from food, water, and refugees were flowing in from former German lands. In 1949, France, Britain, and the US decided to merge their areas into one zone, the Federal Republic of Germany, or West Germany, as will be referred throughout this video. The Soviets turned their occupation zone of Germany into the German Democratic Republic, which I will refer to as East Germany throughout this video. West Germany was transformed into a stable Western-style democracy post-war. New policies were put in place to prevent extremist parties like the Nazis from gaining power too easily. They were considering that a socialist party might pop out in West Germany, and that would be tragic. As explained in the last episode, the Federal Republic of Germany was aided by the Marshall Plan and rebuilt itself and its economy with the millions of dollars that were flowing in. West German citizens began adjusting to normal life in a democracy and living life to its fullest without having to worry about anything. West Germany became the beacon of hope for Eastern European citizens post-war, thinking that they might be able to flee to a democracy and live their lives in peace. However, East Germany was transformed by the Soviet Union into a totalitarian state, similar to the Soviet Union itself. It has joined the Warsaw Pact, a collection of countries the Soviet Union had acquired post-World War II. It had a secret police, like the Soviet Union, the Stasi, and met the Soviet expectations of a country. Opinions were crafted into what the state liked. Free speech depended on what you said. Newspapers were controlled by the state, and education and artistic flows were being strongly controlled. For the citizens of East Germany, this meant that life was harsh and difficult. Prices for essentials like food were still extremely high, and they just struggled to live another day. Jobs were mostly rebuilding the destruction of World War II, and pay was low, but people still managed to survive. The division of Germany furthered the rivalry between the United States and Russia during the Cold War. Germany was the center of political tension because of its convenient geographic location, and since it was the border between Eastern Europe and Western Europe during the Cold War, as the Soviet Union had gained everything until East Germany, and the United States and Britain and France had gained everything until West Germany. The Soviet Union had always tried expansion and still wanted to, and now that Germany was no longer a threat to this, they seized control of much more territory freely and easily. However, due to the terrible living conditions in East Germany, 2.6 out of the 17.5 million people living there had already fled to Western Germany. This meant that there were numerous labor shortages throughout the country, and East Germany further degrading the failing economy. As the situation got worse and worse, The USSR was now prepared to take extreme measures to put an end to this. In mid-1948, the Soviet Union began a blockade of Berlin, cutting off vital supply routes. They justified this by saying the blockade was due to them doing extensive road work, but this fooled no one. They went on to claim that the whole of Berlin was rightfully theirs, and the Allies had set up the conventions and conferences to make sure they got Western Berlin. However, the Allies were not defeated by this action and began the famous Berlin airlift. They flew in 9,000 tons of supplies a day through airplanes, mostly coal and potatoes, hardly gourmet. And the USSR could do nothing with their anti-air guns and anti-tank guns because they did not want to fight a war. They were in no shape to fight a war of any size against the Allied powers because they did not have nuclear weapons yet. This showed that they were weak, murderers trying to kill 2 million people in West Berlin, men, women, and children alike, and this made the Allies look like they were saviors. The USSR knew they couldn't continue this and ended the failed blockade in May of 1949. The USSR, though weakened by this defeat, would not stop. In 1961, they put up the infamous Berlin Wall. They had already blocked off any ways for East German citizens to flee through the West-East German border or any border alike. The Berlin Wall was a series of concrete walls, minefields, barbed wires, bear traps, any kind of traps, and guard towers that encircled all of Western Berlin. Over 80 people were shot dead trying to escape East Germany through the Berlin Wall. It was partially successful in stopping the masses from fleeing. But however, people came up with ingenious ways to get through this, even though they may have been a little basic or even too interesting. Many people dug tunnels and they could not be stopped because they couldn't shoot anyone who had already fled to West Germany. Some people even crashed cars through the wall and attempted to make a break for it. Some people tried to climb them. Some people tried to use ropes. It didn't matter. Some escaped. However, in the summer of 1989, Hungary opened its borders and allowed escape routes for East Germans as they were getting reformed with a new government. This meant that the Berlin Wall was now obsolete, other than blocking a game of hide and seek, and the Soviet Union took it down soon after. The Cold War was a brutal and devastating event, with Germany being the center of conflict. But the German people were not defeated and stood their ground throughout the entire thing, which in turn led to a sweeping wave of revolutions throughout Eastern Europe, tearing down their Soviet institutions and leading to multiple democracies popping up here and there, leading to the Europe we now know today.